Good morning, boys and girls. So, yesterday we did a picture walk through this book and did some Pat the Predicting. And today we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. I'm going to put it in present mode so you will lose my picture until the end, but this way you'll be able to see the pages a little bit bigger. And you'll notice on this first page, it says Mary Anderson's Great Invention. And it says, how can problem solving lead to new ideas? I kind of like that. All right, so here we go. I'm also, boys and girls, going to teach you the skill of check for understanding, who and what, which kind of goes in the category of Quincy the questioner, because he asked a lot of questions. So we will be answering for who and what also. All right, let me put it in present mode. All right. You might think that a ride in a bus or car is the same today as it was long ago. That isn't true. The first cars were not as fast. They were noisy. Cars didn't even have windshield wipers. When it rained, drivers rubbed their windshield wipers with an onion. Oh, I'm thinking to myself right now, wonder why an onion? That would smell. The oil from the onion would repel or keep off rain and sleet. It wasn't the best solution, but there were no better substitutes. So it may not have been the best answer, but they didn't really have anything else. Nothing else worked. Then a woman named Mary Anderson solved the problem. So on this page, I would say who. And that even though it mentioned Mary Anderson at the end, this page really wasn't about her. That was kind of like a teaser for the next page. Really, the who was drivers. The what is they didn't have windshield wipers, so they had to use onions and stick their hand out the window and wipe them off with onions. It started with snow. Mary Anderson grew up in Alabama. In the winter of 1902, she went to New York City. It was a cold and windy day. The sky was a gray curtain. That's called non-literal language, boys and girls. The sky wasn't really a gray curtain. It just wants us to visualize it in our mind like a gray curtain. She couldn't see through it. Snow was a white blanket on the ground. Wow, non-literal language again. It really wasn't a white blanket, just describing snow. Think about when you've seen snow really white across the ground. Mary was cold and wet. Because she wanted to warm up and get dry, she rode a streetcar, which is pictured at the bottom. Back then, some streetcar windshields had two parts. They opened with a push. From her seat, Mary watched snow and ice build up on the windshield. The streetcar driver could not see, so he pushed open the windshield. This helped him to see better. As a result, snow and ice blew in his face. Soon his nose and ears were ice cubes. Non-literal language, I don't think they really turned into ice cubes. Other cars kept stopping too. Sometimes the drivers hopped out. They wiped off their windshields. Then they got back in and drove. As a result, traffic moved slowly. Who? Mary Anderson. What? She was riding on a streetcar and she noticed that the snow and ice kept piling up on the windshields and the drivers would have to get out. Also, if I was Quincy the questioner, I would have a where question on this page. Can you answer the where question? Where was she at when she noticed this? Hopefully you said New York City. When? Says Quincy the questioner. Yep, 1902. I bet you got that one. The next step. Mary thought about this problem. How could drivers clean their windshields without stopping? Could they do it without opening their windshield? Back home in Alabama, Mary sketched her ideas. Then she added notes. She wanted to examine her solution to make sure that it worked. Next, Mary did her own investigation. She looked for facts about what drivers needed. She invented a windshield wiper that a driver could use from inside the car. Then she worked out a design or plan. On paper, Mary's invention looked simple. She hoped drivers would find it easy to use. Who? Mary. What? She sketched out ideas to make a windshield wiper that would work without the drivers having to get out of their car. Mary had a model built. It was made of quality wood, rubber, and metal. Soon the model was ready to test. It was fitted on a windshield. The driver moved a handle inside the car. So think about it, boys and girls. Ours just now, your parents turn a switch and it starts moving. They actually moved a handle inside the car. The handle caused a blade to move back and forth across the glass. It worked. Mary's idea was a gem. Non-literal language. It wasn't really a stone or a rock. It was a great idea. She felt encouraged and was sure it would sell. Solving the problem. Mary's windshield wiper solved a problem, but it took many years before people used them. That's because most people did not own cars. By 1913, more people bought and drove cars. Those cars had windshields. Finally, windshield wipers began to sell. Drivers became safer and easier. Oh, something didn't sound right about that. So one of the characters of the Fab Four that you haven't met yet is Chris the Clarifier. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I said drivers became safer. That didn't make sense. So Chris the Clarifier, I stopped and tried to clarify. I went back and reread. Finally, windshield wipers began to sell. Driving became safer and easier because of Mary Anderson's idea. That made more sense. Safer to drive. Cars from long ago were different from cars we ride in today. Here are some more inventions that help make driving safer. The first seatbelts were used in 1885. Cars stopped at the first stop sign in 1915. Imagine if we had no stop signs. Cars first used turn signals in 1938. My who on this page again would be Mary. My what? Created these windshields, but it took a long time for them to begin to sell. But eventually, people had windshields in their cars. And let me show you the picture that's on the last page. And just think, Mary created these windshield wipers that help solve the problem of having to drive without your windshields being able to be cleaned off. Then the last question said, what invention can you think of that's made your life better? Well, we're going to talk about that during our live session this week later. All right, let me get you out of full screen. All right, I'm back. I hope you liked that story. I really like that story about Mary Anderson because a lot of us really haven't heard about her, and we don't think much about our windshield wipers. But when you're driving someday, you will be very glad to have windshield wipers. I'm certainly glad not to be using an onion. All right, boys and girls, work hard.